What does Seiyu mean? That is a question that most of us have made when we first started to get into anime or drama CDs, or simply because we came across a GIF or a funny video featuring that Japanese word on the headline. I know most of you already know the meaning, but this podcast is also for beginners, meaning that if you've just come across the word Seiyu and started to search more, chances are that you don't know what it means, or you don't know well what Seiyu actually do, and you're curious to learn more, am I right? In this episode, I'll satisfy your curiosity. You ready? Let's kick off the first episode of Seiyu Lounge. Welcome to Seiyu Lounge. I'm your host, Vanessa, and today's topic is a rather simple one. What does Seiyu mean? Before I kick off this topic, I want you guys to have two basic notions so that you can understand the rest of the episode. So, kicking in the basics. The Japanese language is overwhelming for newcomers, that is a given. Japanese have a three-part writing system that encompasses kanji, katakana, and hiragana. For us, foreigners, we actually use a fourth way of writing Japanese, only for phonetic reasons, basically to better learn the sounds and overall pronunciation of Japanese words. It's called romaji. So there are three complex writing systems and one that we actually use as foreigners to help us out. So, first off, kanji. It's the system of symbols that represent words or ideas, much alike Chinese characters, and that you can have different meanings and pronunciations depending on their context. It was brought to Japan by the Chinese. Then we have katakana and hiragana. Both are phonetic systems in which each character is a syllable. Katakana is used for foreign or at least loan words, and hiragana is used for Japanese words that do not have an equivalent in kanji, or in cases the kanji exists, but it's no longer considered common. Romaji consists in basically using Latin script to write the Japanese language, basically making kanji, hiragana, and katakana readable in a phonetic way that corresponds to our way of writing. It is a simpler way to learn how to pronounce Japanese words. Now that we have the basics, let's kick off with what you really wanted to know. So, what are Seiyu? Or what is a Seiyu? Seiyu is the Japanese word for voice actor, regardless of gender. While in English and in my case, Portuguese, we have words basically to say what is a voice actor and what is a voice actress. Of course, words connected to gender. The Japanese language is pretty straightforward and uses only one word to include every gender. It's Seiyu. So in simple terms, a voice actor is a Seiyu and a voice actress is a Seiyu. This is of course the romaji reading of the kanji Seiyu. If you are watching this episode of the podcast on YouTube, you're now seeing the kanji on the screen. So let's break it down, because there are a couple of interesting bits in the kanji reading that people don't often have into attention. Although Seiyu in its common reading translates to voice actor, there are hidden meanings to it. Seiyu can also mean voice superiority and voice gentleness, which in my opinion aren't bad translations at all. If you've watched Japanese dub anime or listened to a drama CD or played the game localized for Japan, you'll notice that these translations are not that far off. Japanese voice actors are really that good. Now, there's a following question, right? Most of us have come across the words at least, male seiyuu and female seiyuu. Why do we use those? So basically, because the word has no gender assigned, as I mentioned before, seiyuu means male seiyuu and female seiyuu. So when us, foreigners, want to refer to a certain seiyuu and don't want to use the words voice actor that are usually used to refer to foreign voice actors, for example in the US or UK, basically we have to put the gender before the word seiyuu. For example, The Hand That Feeds HQ is a website about male seiyuu music. What it means is that I cover music news and a whole bunch of things about Japanese voice actors. Not voice actresses, but voice actors. Since it's rather lengthy to say, people just use male seiyuu or female seiyuu to refer to them instead. So, what do male seiyuu do or seiyuu do in general? That's usually the following question once you get to know what seiyuu actually means. In my opinion, seiyuu are artists, voice artists. While this is a rather cryptic explanation, I mean that seiyuu use their voice in a wide variety of ways, and using a skill that most voice actors abroad could never manage to have. So what do seiyuu do? This is not an exhaustive list, so please have into attention when you start saying that I forgot something. This is not exhaustive, but it gives a clear picture, or at least paints an interesting picture of what seiyuu do. So, they voice characters in anime series, movies. They dub foreign movies and series. They do narration work. They do radio work. They do voiceovers for commercials and museum guides, for example. They act, be it in theater, reading plays, stage plays, musicals, TV dramas. They actually sing, be it as a solo act, part of a band, part of a 2D idol project, and most recently they are also YouTubers. So there are actually seiyuu that do all of these things, so have in mind that this is a bit overkill, but there are actually seiyuu that do all of these things and more. And note that I only listed common things that can be done using their voice, or in which their voice is used. Why is that? Because there are seiyuu that are authors, designers, lyricists, teachers, TV personalities, jewelry designers, and so on and so forth. While I only scratched the surface, I hope this episode got you covered on what are seiyuu and what do seiyuu do. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss The Hand That Feeds HQ's weekly male seiyuu and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. I'll return next week to talk about seiyuu making their debuts in the music industry and how that can or not affect their success and popularity. Thank you guys for listening, and see you guys around.